cis white male old guy about diversity?
Not that type of diversity.
Oh, okay.
But who better than both of us to have a conversation on that? Yeah. That's also another interesting, I think, kind of question, but I don't really want to talk about it. Maybe sometime in the future. Now it appears we're live.
Cool.
I will now tweet.
Sorry about my loud keyboard.
I too have a loud keyboard, so no worries there. Hello Twitch, I hope you're having a nice day. It's I don't know what day it is because I left work early yesterday to let that dog go to the bathroom, so I don't know what's happening.
There's a dog back there. Oh, I see it.
Mango, come here, please.
Oh, look at the puppy.
We are dog sitting.
Oh,
this little loaf right here. Yes.
Yeah, look at that. Yeah, we're gonna foster a dog this weekend.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
We just moved, so we are like dog sitting for all sorts of people while being keeping it all under the radar so that our landlord and such doesn't know. Alright, we can begin in earnest, and I guess just right now.
Sure.
Hello everyone, and welcome to June's Conductor Seat. I am your conductor, Tim Lanning, and joining me today is... Oh, I didn't ask you exactly how to pronounce your name.
Well, let's see how you do.
I'm just going to go Mike Shea.
Good job.
Thank
well
you.
done.
Thank you.
Perfect. First try.
I knew there's a couple
You had
things.
like a 50-50 shot on that one.
Yeah, you never know with names. Sometimes
Yeah.
people, I don't know. It could
It
be
works.
anything in these day and ages.
Yep.
I forbade Michael from coming here because he's so busy. I said he was only allowed to guest as well. Michael, my DM from D&D Podcast, if he was wearing a bathrobe and had cucumbers on his eyes and he was drinking like a tiki drink. But
That'd be okay.
yeah, he's
Then he could come on?
he's so busy. I make fun of him for it constantly. Where if he has like, he was joking about his commute being 40 minutes less round trip. So maybe he would start a new podcast or something like that. What are you gonna do? But yeah, we're how can you introduce yourself? I know you as the Lazy Dungeon Master, as Sly Flourish,
Yep.
and things like that. But for those at home, how do you describe yourself?
It's pretty much it. Like, the value I bring to the world is stuff that's going on Sly Flourish. So I've had the Sly Flourish website for about, I think, almost 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
I've been writing a weekly article every Monday morning for 10 years. Pretty much. I think I missed like one or two.
That's amazing.
Yeah, and I've written a bunch of books about D&D, including Sly Flourish's Dungeon Master Tips, and running Epic tier games, which is now available for free on my website because not a lot of people buy books about 4th edition Epic games anymore. But it's there, and I think it's got really good. I think it's got really good stuff in it, so I gave it away. Cool. And the Lazy Dungeon Master is probably what I'm most known for. And then I've written 2 recent books, Sly Flourish's Fantastic Locations and Sly Flourish's Fantastic Adventures. Both of them were Kickstarters. And now I'm right in the middle of Return of the Lazy Dungeon Master, the sort of 6-year update on the way of the Lazy Dungeon Master, which is actually 2 books. It's Return of the Lazy Dungeon Master and the Lazy DM's Workbook, one of which is the kind of book that you read and it gives you, thoughts and advice and ideas at a higher level.
Yeah.
And then the Lazy DM's Workbook is the thing you can carry with you to your game and open it up and roll on some random charts. It's really designed to help people improvise while they're running D&D games.
As a backer myself, the updates you've been doing, I've been skimming through them, and it's that weird thing when you kickstart something where you're like, I want to see the updates, but I also want to save all of it for when it's done.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I'm really curious to see how the workbook is going to go. That seems like...
Yeah, I think it'll be... I'm very happy with it. So Scott Gray, who is the editor for both books, his son-in-law also did the development of that book. So both Scott and his son-in-law really dug into the math and the charts and the tables and understanding how they work.
That's awesome.
And it's like a 50-page book. It's not real small, and has lots and lots and lots of, like, if you think about the kind of charts you see in the DMG for random generation, they're similar to that, but in hitting on other topics, and in many cases have sort of a they have instead of like rolling a d20 for one random thing, you can roll 5 d20 and combine a bunch of things together, and that gives you almost a nearly infinite array of things like items, common items, magical items, relics that you discover that are weird, locations, traps, all sorts of things like that.
When did you do Fantastic Adventures?
Last year. So that was last year's. Yeah, I think I kickstarted it early 2017 and delivered it in. I think everything was delivered by about November of 2017.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So that was.
I love the cover of that one. So.
Yeah. I love the cover of all of them.
It sticks. Oh yeah. Oh, my bad. Yeah, no,
that's cool.
Who's the artist of those?
So Jack Kaiser did the cover for Fantastic Adventures, Return of the Lazy Dungeon Master, and the Lazy D&D Workbook. He did all 3.
I love it.
Yeah, I got kind of clued into him from Robert Schwab and the Shadows of the Demon Lord.
Okay.
And I just loved his style of art. I thought he was really great, and so I sent him a note and we got in touch, and he's fantastic. Yeah, his stuff is excellent. He did a bunch of the internal art for Fantastic Adventures as well.
Okay.
I think about 4 pieces inside Fantastic Adventures of things that he did.
Yeah. Twitch people, lock your questions in for later after we get done chatting. But I did want to give you guys a heads up. So tell me
Twitch
a little bit.
People.
Give me a little background on I guess you obviously you said you've had Sly Flourish for 10 years. But like, what got you into tabletop gaming, all that good stuff?
Oh man, I mean, so there's a lot of us out there that have been doing it forever, and I've been doing it forever. I think I was 14 or 15 in the mid 80s and got started with 2nd edition D&D. I think the interesting thing there is my first exposure to D&D was Pool of Radiance, which is this old computer, incredibly archaic computer game.
That sounds familiar.
Yeah, I played it on an Apple IIe. And I liked the math. I liked looking at the stats, and I was like, I don't know what the hell any of this means.
Yeah.
Like, what the hell's an 1863 strength? So I bought the 2nd edition Player's Handbook, and I liked it, but I didn't have anybody to play with. And then I did get into RPGs with GURPS. I think originally we wanted sort of an RPG that you could do anything in, and then I moved over to D&D and ran a second edition D&D campaign for some time in high school. And then played in college, 2nd edition D&D, and then stopped and played Magic the Gathering for a bunch of years and computer games for a bunch of years. And then massive online games for a bunch of years. I played a lot of EverQuest and a lot of World of Warcraft. And then my wife is also a huge D&D nerd. She's been playing longer than I have. She's a first edition gal.
Does she hold that over your head constantly? Or?
No, no, not at all. She's the nice one of the two of us. And but I inherited a whole ton of 1st edition modules, all of which have a green unicorn stamped in the upper left corner, which is her sigil.
Oh yeah,
yeah, which is awesome. And so anyway, she had a friend who played D&D, and I was like, hey, why don't we play? So we started playing 3.5.
Okay.
I think it was right when 3rd was switching over to 3.5, and we played 3.5 for a while. And that was sort of when I started and didn't stop.
Yeah.
I didn't have a break after that. So that was it's like 15 years ago.
Wow. What happened 10 years ago when you're like, you know what? I'm smart as hell. Let me jump in there.
Yeah. It wasn't that, and it was right. So I was really into D&D. Like there's playing D&D and there's getting into it, right? There's sort of the meta, right? The meta that surrounds D&D. And I started getting into that, like who the people are that are developing this and going to conventions and that sort of stuff right at the tail end of 3.5. And I remember that Dave Noonan and some other guys that were involved in 3.5 started to do really interesting things with the game. There were these books like the Book of Nine Swords, and there was I can't remember what it was called. There was like a new Magic book that they put right at the end of 3.5. And it had really new ways to look at Magic and to look at melee. Like instead of just fighters having fighter type things, now you had fighters that had crazy powers they could do. And it was clearly like their test run of 4th edition.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. And actually, a friend of mine, David Hartledge, who writes the website DM David, wrote about this recently. He has a series of articles that kind of talks about the pacing of D&D and this transition from 3.5 to 4th to 5th. So I really was into the combat at that point, very tactically thinking, and I liked in talking to folks like Rob Hainso, who was I think he was like a team lead or something in Wizards right at the beginning of 4th edition, and I talked to him about it at conventions and stuff like that, and I was piecing together what they were going to do in 4th.
Okay,
I was
like behind the scenes
game.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I was like, your miniatures game has these really interesting mechanics, and he's like, you like those? And I was like, yeah. He goes, well, guess what? You're going to see a lot of them.
That's hilarious.
And then 4th edition came out, and I fell in love with 4th edition because it was this very refined.
Yeah.
So that everything was real streamlined and everything like that. And I played 4th for so it was about that point. I'm answering your question in a very roundabout way.
That's the perfect way, in my opinion.
I guess, yeah. So that was when I said, I had already written blogs on other things. I wrote a home theater blog for a while, and I was a host, like the lead writer for a blog on EverQuest for a long time.
Oh, yeah.
So I was used to writing a lot.
Yeah.
And I said, I want to do a blog about Dungeons and Dragons, but I don't want to do it on D&D overall. I want to do it on 4th edition. And I don't want to just do it on 4th edition, but I want to do it on 4th edition dungeon mastering.
Interesting.
Like I want to laser in on that. Let other people, and there was like a lot of other, my friend Jeff Greiner wrote a website called At Will, which was a player focused website. And sorry, I'm reading comments at the same time.
It's hard. I can't do it very well.
Turn alt account. I don't understand what that means.
I'm gonna ask that question in a second.
What the hell is that? So so I wanted to really narrow the focus down and let other people write about other stuff. And there was this this was when blogging was like a big deal.
Yeah.
Not, it surrounded, there was a bunch of us that wrote for it. There was like this group, we all kind of knew each other, and we all met each other through this stuff. Newbie DM was one of them. Sarah Dark Magic, Tracy Hurley was another, and Dave Chalker. And
she was my first DM at PAX.
Really? That's awesome. Yeah, she's awesome.
She's good friends, I believe, or at least was. I don't know, of one of my friends, and then he's like, "Hey, she's cool." And then at this guy's wedding, they sat us next to each other, and it was just kind of funny.
Awesome.
It's like, I think I remember you. It's like, I think I remember you. Actually, she probably didn't remember me because it was PAX, and she was running like a million games of.
Yeah, I remember that. She ran like more 4th edition starter games than like anybody I knew. Like she just ran over and over and over and over.
Yeah, I still, you know.
I don't know if that was that PAX East.
Yeah, it's PAX East. Yeah.
Yeah, so I was there.
I don't know if it's like that situation of like your first one is like the one you remember, like your favorite edition or whatever. But I still think that the one shot she quickly did was incredibly fun and something that I think back to all the time.
Yeah. So I focused on 4th edition dungeon mastering for a long time. I said I'm going to write on a schedule. I'm going to publish an article every late morning on Monday so that people get into work and they hate being at work, so they can open up Sly Flourish and read about some D&D.
Yeah, that's smart.
And and that worked really well. And so I started doing that, and then I think I started writing like Sly Flourish's dungeon master tips and things like that, and got Wizards of the Coast's attention and started writing for them. So I wrote for Dragon Magazine. And I wrote for Dungeon Magazine. These were online versions that when they took them back from Kobold Press. I think it was Kobold Press that had them at the time. And wrote an adventure with Teo Sabadia, who goes by AlphaStream on Twitter. He and myself and Scott Gray. Scott Gray's an editor that's worked with Wizards of the Coast for a long time. We did an adventure called Vault of the Dracolich, which was it was in the D&D Next era.
Yeah, that sounds familiar.
Yeah, and this switching over from 4th edition to Next was a big transition for me.
Yeah,
and I'm a neophile. I love anything new. Right? Like I don't. Yeah. I'm happy to burn the past and love going to anything new. So when they went from 3.5 to 4th, I wasn't one of the people that's like, I hate 4th edition. I'm going to stick around and do this. which worked for a lot of people because they made Pathfinder, and Pathfinder is very successful.
Right, exactly.
But I stuck with 4E, and then when 4E was gone, I was like, I'm ready for 5th.
Yeah,
right? I'm ready to just move on, whatever they do.
That's good to hear, because we did our podcast for 126 episodes in 4th edition, and I think about 50 of them were after 5th came out. And everyone's like, are you guys going to switch? I'm like, oh, we already got this thing.
Yeah.
Half of our classes and some of our races aren't even in this yet. We're not sure what we're going to do. And then eventually we did it in a very stupid but funny way where, like, we broke the magical age and we moved over. And it was a lot of fun. Yeah. And people always, like, gave a shit for playing 4E. He's like, oh, 4E sucks. It was like, well, that's all I've played. I'm having fun.
Yeah, it was, and I look fondly on it. I mean, it had bugs and warts, and I think the interesting thing to me, kind of looking, when you kind of get past everybody's sort of attitude about it, that when you look at it, when you try to look at it objectively, it's like, well, there's some really interesting things about, like, I ran my biggest campaign in 4th edition, a 1 to 30 campaign that went all the way from first level all the way to them fighting the Orcus, the god of death, and I think they even fought a bunch of dudes after that. Like, they killed all 5 elemental princes. And that was great fun to run, and I loved it, and the people, my group was great, and that was awesome. But boy, there were some things about it that I had a real hard time dealing with. Even when I was doing design work for Wizards, I was like, man, I don't know how to deal with this. I wrote one creature for them called Cryonax, who's the elemental prince of ice. They actually have a 5th elemental prince. One of them's ice. His name's Cryonax, and I think it is the hardest officially published D&D monster of 4th edition.
Congratulations!
I think I have that title.
Wow!
And not like anybody knew, right? But
but you knew.
There, and it is. Yeah, I know.
And now
it's published
we
in
do
Dragon
too.
Magazine.
Yeah. And
myself and Chris Sims. Chris Sims was working for Wizards of the Coast, and he was their developer. And he and I went back and forth and back and forth and back and forth on tweaking every little aspect of that guy to make him just as horrendous a pain in the ass. He's like a challenge rating level 35 solo. And his goal was like, he wanted to kick everybody's ass. And he had really interesting effects. He had the thing called the donut aura, which was an aura that surrounded him. It went out like 50 feet, but then ended 20 feet in. And if you were between 20 feet and 50 feet, you were getting shredded by ice.
Okay.
So you couldn't see him if you were outside of it, so you couldn't do anything to him. And you had to if you did, you had to be within 20 feet of him to do anything, which means he could hit you with tentacles. So it was like, you're always screwed fighting him.
That sounds terrible.
Yeah, and it was, but it was designed like if you're 30th level, he's going to still kick your ass. It doesn't matter how high level you are.
Yeah, we did.
It's like a walking version of the Tomb of Horrors.
Yeah, we did the for the Mordenkainen's Tome of Foes. They did like a podcast crossover thing. Wizards did, and ours we fought Orcus, and it was kind of funny. Like, before we went into it, we weren't sure how hard it was going to be or anything like that.
Right.
But so we just all like rolled up level 20 characters, and some of them were quite broken. Mine was very broken. I didn't make it. Someone made it for me. But we downed them like super quick. So I would love. I don't really know how a DM would challenge. Like, that's one thing that I've always seen on whenever I'm reading a little bit of like, this is maybe one reason why campaigns restart a lot, where you get to like level 12 or 13, like, all right, we're level 1 again.
Things are getting really weird. I could see that. And I've been, especially with Mordenkainen's, because it does focus so heavy on high level guys. And I had a big interest in 4th edition with high level monsters, and a lot of that sort of wired into my brain that I look at them and I'm like, these guys are going to get butchered, right? Like, Hudajin, I think he's like the deputy. He's like second in command to Mephistopheles. Yeah, and I'm like, he does like 16 points of damage on a hit. Like, that doesn't, But the nice thing with 5th that you couldn't do in 4th is I can make like 3 hacks in my head and make any one of those guys really, really hard. And in 4th, I couldn't. In 4th, I had to like rebuild guys from scratch.
It's an interesting. It's an interesting thing I see sometimes on Reddit or wherever, where people, there's especially now, I don't know, I'm actually not super, I haven't been around a long time, I guess like 5 years, give or take, so I don't know what the history was, but now it feels like there's like old school, like, it's a game, that it's to be solved, yada yada yada, versus like, hey man, we're just chilling and improv and whatever. Yeah, right. And like, I remember there's been several, like, some threads that they kind of go back and forth, and then someone will inevitably say, well, the game is balanced based on this, this, and this. So if the DM is doing everything correct, then it will work out. And I'm just like, I don't think that's true.
That's bullshit.
Yeah,
right. I mean, the whole idea of balance and first of all, the idea of balance in any version of D&D is pretty flawed.
I can't imagine they would ever even entertain the idea that D&D is balanced.
Right. And anybody that's played characters that are above 12th level can see that things go all weird.
Yeah.
And that's fine, and I think Jeremy Crawford, who's the lead rules guy for D&D, had a podcast on Dragon Talk, their official D&D podcast, where he talked about challenge ratings and how challenge ratings are supposed to work. And he kind of really nailed this single point that even I'd spent a ton of time thinking about challenge rating and how the challenge rating system and how you do encounter balance and all this. And when it came down to it, was it's there as a loose guide for whether or not you're going to TPK the party.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
It's not there to build balanced encounters. It's there to give you a warning. It's a little siren that goes off that says, you might wipe your guys out.
Yeah.
And
whenever I see people be like, oh, well, one time I did a challenge level 5 that Kobold Fight Club said was murderous and nothing happened. And then another time it didn't. It's well, again,
just look at Banshees, Banshees will wipe out, enough Banshees will wipe out just about any party, regardless of the fact that they're only CR4. And it's because when they scream, you drop to 0. And it doesn't matter how many hit points you have, you drop to 0. Yeah. It's if your wisdom sucks, you're going down.
Yeah.
So,
anything with randomness, I don't think they would want to. I ran a quick Tomb of Annihilation beginner thing. And I was like, well, I don't want just zombies. I want something cool. So I threw a ghoul in there for fun. And as I was just playing it, I was like, these guys don't know how to play D&D. I had pretty much hadn't even told them how combat works. I'm like, let's just jump in, whatever. And I was like, this guy could kill all of them.
Yeah.
If I am bad, and it's just kind of a hilarious thing.
Yeah, I'd be plundering in your chat here is saying that he likes to think of, or I don't know if it's a he or she, they like to think of 5e as loose guidelines, and that's exactly what they're for.
Yeah.
My argument is, and a complaint that I had for a long time until Xanathar's guide came out, was they're loose guidelines, but boy, they're a pain in the ass to do. Right? If you look at the DMG, it's these 2 dials you have to twist.
Oh, yeah.
There's multipliers you have to add and all kinds of craziness.
Yeah.
Which is why Kobold Fight Club is, I think, at least 2 years ago from a survey I did, was the most popular third-party application, the most popular third-party tool for D&D.
I don't know what you would do without it. I guess just kind of wing it.
I have some really simple rules in my head that help me get that baseline. Once you understand what the relationship is between challenge rating and character level, and you can do the math in your head, it becomes easier to look at a battle and be like, what CR are those guys and what level's the party? And then count the number of guys. Yeah, that's going to be deadly. Yeah. Or that's going to be, I'll be just fine.
My new thing,
but I still get it wrong,
is if you're fighting a barbarian, throw in the normal monsters,
count them as 2,
and then but then lie and say, oh, this monster has some bullshit magic to the, so they're still doing their normal I'm a guard attack, but it's actually fire now, so you do take the damage. I'm sorry.
Mean. Yeah, I was doing it for Moon Druids too, that I would just, when I would do math, I would just count them as 2 characters.
Okay.
And then it's well, if you treat them like they're 2 characters, then you add more monsters, and then and that's the thing, all the nonsense about encounter balance. I think the true danger is accidentally killing the party.
Yeah.
Right. The sort of, and then there is a danger in making a battle against a boss monster too easy.
Yep.
Generally, I don't care if a battle's too easy or not, unless it's it was Imrith or Strahd.
Yeah.
It was one of the bosses from a mod, and then you're those you really want to spend a lot of time. And I go back to my 4th edition, let me look at how I designed it, and then I've got some dirty tricks for doing that, have them fight them once, and it's not really them.
Yeah.
But you can see what happens, and you can be like, wow, they butchered him. So I'm going to have to do some crazy stuff.
I should say, everyone in chat, go to slyflourish.com.
Obviously.
There's a million things. We're going to ask him questions that he's, I'm sure, answered at some point. You've started writing for D&D Beyond,
I'll make it easier for them, and I'll put a link in the
chat. Nice. And you have the D&D Beyond articles, which I have this one open because I was like, I'm pretty sure you wrote, but I don't want to get rude and be like, hey, congratulations.
No, that was James Hay.
It's like, you're not him.
Right. No, I'm not. He's far prettier than I am.
Yeah. Let me ask you, why'd you call it Sly Flourish?
There was a rogue power in 4th edition called Sly Flourish, and I went looking for domains, and that one wasn't taken.
So the reason why IB Plenderin asked previously when he saw, he said, 1 year ago I saw Sly Flourish and thought it was a TUM alt account. Because when I started playing fourth edition, I played a rogue, and I was looking at all the spells. What do you call it? Abilities? And I was like,
right, powers.
All these suck. Sly Flourish rules.
Yeah,
like,
right.
I was like,
that was the one that used charisma as your damage bonus.
Yeah, and it was like it let me move maybe I think so like I could break up so I wouldn't do opportunity attacks. And I was like, I know I'm new, and I know I don't want to like metagame this, but I literally can't figure out why I would do any other move. So as a way to like almost apologize to the fan, that became my catchphrase, and it kind of made me laugh.
Yeah.
But okay, so let's talk about practical stuff.
Sure.
Well, as silly as it sounds, I almost just want to like ask you like, what's the number one tip? You know, what's the what if someone walks up to you, you know, you're at Starbucks, like, hey, I recognize you. You're
right. Hey, no one recognizes you.
Oh, it's you.
I had a coworker that I've worked with who was sitting one table away, and she didn't recognize me at Starbucks. You know, so no one recognizes me at Starbucks. Yeah.
Well, we'll try to fix that soon. Are you going to PAX Unplugged?
Probably not this year.
Okay.
We're going to Gen Con and Origins, and I think that's going to be. We already went to Origins. We're going to Gen Con.
Yeah.
I think that's going to fill our con schedule up for the year. We went last year though and liked it a lot.
Yeah, it was fun. I'm excited about going again. But yeah, so let me be rude and be broad. What's like the number one thing, especially for being a DM, because we get all the same questions more or less. It's why are my characters bad? Why do my games end? How do I find a game? And how do I get other people to DM? And you know, it's. I think one can attack all of those questions from different ways. So broadly speaking, what's like your number one go-to thing?
Probably my number one. So if it's for a new DM. And as you say, I wrote a bunch of articles for D&D Beyond. So I have like 6 articles that are steered towards new dungeon masters to say like and they answer some of those questions. Well, they offer my thoughts on those questions. They don't answer. Right? It's not like they're done. Like no one ever needs to ask about how to find a group
solved.
Again. Right. But one of them is just all about how you find and maintain a group. Like how do you get people together, and then how do you keep them there, and how do you keep the group healthy over time. And it's really just what I've heard from digging into this community a while and what's worked for me. Did my light just go off? I don't know. So there's stuff there. But then I think the other one for like a new DM is just staying. I feel like, and I've seen from posts on Facebook and I've seen from posts on Twitter, people that like they jump in with both feet and they're like, I've got a game world and I'm going to build this world out and I'm going to build a pantheon and I hate the spell system, so I'm going to have a whole new spell system. And I'm going to do this whole thing, but I'm also going to have, musket people. And they have like really big ideas. And it's because like, this is one of the few games where you have this incredible creative outlet where you can like, holy cow, I can do anything in here. Yeah. It's mine. And they get that. I think a lot of people grasp that idea that holy cow, I don't have to follow all the rules in this book.
Yeah.
But I would say you probably want to when you're starting out, right? Like you might not like everything that's in there.
Yeah.
Just give it a shot.
You don't want to stare into the void immediately.
Yeah.
Because I feel like I've seen people, like, I'm sure it's not one of two people, but it feels like there's two types. There's the people that when they first get into D&D do what you did, or as you described, of like, I'm going to make up all this stuff. And there's other people of like, well, there's just so much I don't.
Yeah, right. So I think the thing that can help both people, in that false dichotomy is, keeping everything focused down. So, my friend Enrique, Newbie DM, talks about this before, and it's just like, just start with the town. Like, what town are they in, right? And what and I always kind of envision this idea that while we're building our world, the characters, the players really, but the characters, their eyes are moving around, right? And as their eyes are moving around, that's when the world is getting built.
Yeah.
Like nothing outside of their vision is built. And nothing beyond the horizon line is built. And you build that stuff as their eyes fall upon it. You know, if they, none of the dungeons below are filled out until they step foot in them. And then only the parts that they're in actually get filled out.
Right. I feel like one of the number one advices is we give is like, don't overplan. And if you do overplan, be prepared to throw it away. Or like recycle it,
Yeah.
So,
yeah. I'll share a, so that idea of just, like it's great that you got those ideas and run with them and keep them in mind. Don't sit and write a big ass book.
My joke is no one gives a shit about your elves. Like no one cares why your elves are different.
This is exactly, who cares? You almost quoted Enrique word for word, who said like, no one gives a shit about your 5 gods and your, the people up on the hill and all that. Yeah. They want to know like what's in this town right now and what problem am I going to get into?
If they want to know like what 3 ales are on tap, and you're like, I don't know
what the hell is that weird noise in the basement of this inn.
Yeah,
like exactly. that's what you should. Yeah, but granted, and then people are free to do whatever they want. No one has to follow any of this nonsense. And I don't even know that it's right. I've given some terrible advice in me. So it might be like, no, go with your world. And that's what I'm saying. Like, don't we don't have to hinder ourselves to say like, oh, my world sucks and everyone hates it and I'm not going to think about it. Just let your mind run with it, but you don't have to scoop it all in and stick it in your game right now. Just when you're going to run a game, think about the next game you're going to run, not the whole campaign, not 6 months from now, but what's going to happen Wednesday, and and then I would narrow it even further. Chris Perkins was talking about his Acquisitions Incorporated games that he does, right? And here's a guy who represents Wizards of the Coast and the Dungeons and Dragons brand, and he's going to go out there in front of 4,000 live people, and he's going to be recorded for a YouTube video that gets like 20 million views, right? Yeah. And all he really focuses on is that first scene.
Yeah.
What's going to happen in the first scene?
Yep.
And how is this thing going to get started? And once it started, he said it was 98% improv after that, right? So this is the most popular live D&D game ever, and 98% of it is improvised, right? So that to me, he said he prepped a lot, and he said definitely like with those big sets that they do.
Yeah.
If he has somebody who spends 6 weeks making a model of Omu, they're going to Omu.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. But then like what happens there and how it goes and where it's to the races. It's the characters have ideas and they do things and you respond to those ideas and you kind of make them. And I think that's, to me, that's the fun of D&D is not knowing what's going to happen.
Right. It's still, I think sometimes DMs get too into their quote unquote job and they rightfully get obsessed with making their players have fun. But sometimes they forget to have fun at the table. Like they make it seem like, oh, well, I'm having fun by writing my story, and now my players aren't doing my fun, which is my story. What do I do?
Yeah, right. And that's So finding, that's a really good point. That like, and that's one I haven't really dug into too much of. Like, what exactly do DMs find fun? Right. And I mean, I've been doing it weekly now. I have 2 games a week for at least the last 3 years, and I've had a weekly game for almost 10.
Yeah.
So obviously, I like it. But I do think I like, it's different than writing. Like I wrote a book before, right? And I've written fiction a lot, and it's very different than writing fiction because I'm just setting the stage. Like I'm just designing, I'm building pieces of it, and I'm kind of putting, and it's almost like cooking. The metaphor I've been talking about recently is the idea of cooking at the table. That like you have all the ingredients there in front of you. You have somebody you're trying to impress. And rather than making a meal and bringing it out, you're kind of making the meal while you're eating it, and it's all there, and things are happening that are changing what you're doing. And I love I love that. And it's interesting because like I'm, my own game is different than most in that I run published adventures in a published campaign world. And, I think that's about 30 to 40% of people do that. And about 60-ish% run their own world with their own adventures.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And so that's most people, and I've certainly done that. But like there's to me there's a joy in sort of taking, well first of all I look at like Tomb of Annihilation, and I see an adventure that I don't know how much it cost, 50,000. I don't know how much I don't know how much it cost them to make that.
Yeah,
right? But it's a lot.
Yeah, I'd love to see like the itemized breakdown of like
I tried to estimate it, right, and it was a lot. right?
Yeah, I can't imagine.
Not including the marketing and everything, but you just like the art and the maps and everything in there is a fortune.
Yeah.
There's no way I'm going to be able to put the kind of energy into something I'm making for me, right?
Yeah.
So the ability to capitalize off all of the energy that all these talented people spent, the editors and the page designers and the cartographers and the artists and the writers and the playtesters and all of this stuff that went into this.
Small notes that aren't really there, but they give a little flavor to it.
Yeah, right. That I want to capitalize off that. So, but then I take that and I make it my own, and then I have like Strahd doesn't act like Strahd would in everyone else's adventure, and Imrith became a much more early villain in my Storm King's Thunder campaign, and the direction that the Tomb of Annihilation is going is different than other people, and that to me is the fun part. It's kind of taking all of this energy that went into these really good campaign settings and these really big books, and tuning them slightly to make them my own.
I would love to chat more about that because I forget who was our guest a bit ago, but I kind of just like, the audience isn't here. I want you to tell me how to run Tomb of Annihilation. I open the book, I get scared. What do I do? And it was
a good one.
It was just like so. It's so overwhelming when I first look at it.
Yeah, Tomb of Annihilation has one failure, I think, one big failure, and that failure is unlike almost every other published adventure that Wizards has put out for 5th edition. It doesn't have a small starting adventure. Right, it throws you right into Port Nyanzaru, and it's like, hey, this huge high-powered character teleports you into the city.
Yeah,
and maybe you get into a dinosaur race, but really your goal is to stop this immense threat that's threatening everybody.
Yeah,
hey, level 1 characters, go forward.
Yeah,
and you're like, what? Like, where did I? So my friend James Intercasso, who is the one of the co-owners of the Don't Split the Podcast Network, if I could pimp them, and he's also now a published writer for Wizards of the Coast. I think he wrote for both the upcoming Waterdeep Dragon Heist and the Dungeon of the Mad Mage. He's got credits in both. That's cool. And he also has he's a DM Guild adept, one of the gold adept authors. And he wrote an adventure called The Cellar of Death, which was his intro adventure into Tomb of Annihilation. And it's got very good reviews. I had a chance to see a preview of it. I think it's got 43 high star reviews on DM's Guild.
44 now.
44. I was close. And so it's a well-loved starting adventure that says you're level 1 characters. It gives a little bit more. It does a few things really well. One is it gives you some background into why Sidra Sylvain is hiring you to do this stuff, where they got the information about the death curse in the first place, and also ties you closely to a patron that you have an emotional hook to. So when they die from the death curse, you're hooked into the adventure. Yeah.
We had to make one of our
the adventure doesn't.
It's cool that it doesn't have any of the hooks, but also I want hooks because what if I mess it up and I don't give the right hooks? Like as we were creating our characters, one of my characters was like, okay, actually, I am in a mercenary company, and my adoptive father, death curse starts affecting him. It was like, oh, cool.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah. Oh, it's great when players do that. Yeah, when they come up with their own hooks.
Yeah.
And that's that's something else. That's a good recommendation for any adventure, but also a good one for Tomb and everything else is the Session Zero.
Yeah.
And one thing that I did with I have 2 groups, my Sunday group and my Wednesday group, and both are running Tomb. And with the Sunday group, I said here are factions that you can belong to, and let's have everybody belong to it.
Okay.
So
cool.
instead of having factions where every character is separate, I said, why don't as a group we pick one, and they picked the Flaming Fist, the Flaming Fist company from Baldur's Gate. And the cool thing is there's a bunch of Flaming Fist stuff in Tomb of Annihilation that then changed because they're allied with the Flaming Fist, where the adventure doesn't assume that.
Yeah.
But they are. So that worked out really well. And with that one, I didn't run Cellar Death. I sort of just made this very small, very focused adventure in Baldur's Gate where they were grabbing some information from the last cleric of Baal in a small dungeon in the undercellar of Baldur's Gate, and discovered it, and that just got him from level 1 to 2.
Okay.
And once they were level 1 to 2, then Sidra, who was their Flaming Fist captain.
Okay.
Sidra is not a Flaming Fist mercenary in the book, but in my version, she was.
Hey,
she was like second in command to what's his name, the head of the Flaming Fist mercenary company.
I've read it. I don't know what it is, but
yeah, I forget what his name is. Alter, I can't remember. Raven Guard or something like that. So that gave him a nice solid hook to bring him right into the game.
Right.
And there's also a bunch of other D&D Adventurers League adventures, low level ones. Like they have these nice 2-hour adventures that are built in Port Nyanzaru.
Okay.
I haven't run them, but I think that those are other nice sort of, if you just want to get a level 1 character to do, where the hell do I start?
Yeah.
You can kind of start with that.
Yeah, I bought one. It was like Adventures in Port Nyanzaru.
Yeah, right.
And like I printed it out and wanted, but again, it was like, I don't want to talk about Tuma Knives the whole time, but I still think it's really interesting. Sure. It's like, wait, I told them that they have X amount of days to cure this thing.
Yeah.
I told them, like, all right, the book says this. I'm going to say it, but don't don't
fixate on that.
Right, exactly, because it seems
So there's another problematic thing about the adventure that I think is easier to solve, unless you've told your players already.
Yeah.
And that's that the death curse. Don't describe the death curse as as it's written, and make it as escalating as it is. That the death curse can be a dial that you can turn to either increase or decrease the tension of the game.
Yeah.
So you can, some people have had a lot of success not even mentioning the death curse until they're well into Chult.
Yeah.
And then they start to figure it out.
I think that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, in mine it was like, we think there's this thing going on, but we don't really understand. And by the way, a couple of us have weird rashes.
I saw someone tweet about it, like, why would my team give a shit that all these rich people are starting to die? I think that was a tweet sometime today or yesterday.
Yeah, I saw that. Right. Yeah. And it's like, why do I want to help a bunch of rich people?
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's a really good question. And that's, that idea of like, well, it's not escalating. And for like one group, they started to veer away from sort of the trip to Omu and everything like that. And then they conducted this really dark ritual to resurrect one of the characters who died, even though you can't. And they managed to, but it escalated. It escalated the death curse. Well, they had hag magic, right? That they got from Nanny Poo Poo's sister, who was seeking revenge because they killed Nanny Poo Poo. So they conducted this ritual that nearly killed every crew member on a boat that they were sailing on, but they didn't. And but it escalated the death curse because they twisted death magic.
Okay.
The death curse suddenly scaled up.
There we go.
And they're like, and then they went back to Port Nyanzaru, and they're happy because they're like, they defeated the pirates.
Yeah.
Everything's great.
Yeah.
And the people of Port Nyanzaru was like, we don't know what the hell happened, but something really bad happened. And our priests saw it, and they said something happened over the sea. And our players were all like, oh, that couldn't have been us. That must have been somebody else. I don't know. Could be a lot of things going on in that sea, So now they're like, well, we caused this. We got to go do something about it. So it's a nice dial to turn.
Yeah.
It's like when the urgency needs to go up, you just throw more death curse in. And then when it needs to be dialed back, you say, a vision is telling you that the death curse is waning for a little while. It's still there, but the power of it is less.
These are all tools, one has in their toolbox as a DM.
Exactly.
Like you can cheat or whatever. One of my friends.
I love cheating.
Yeah, he says DMs can cheat, but the players win. Is like his phrase.
Perfect.
That I like a lot.
That's a great phrase.
I'm gonna hard shift. Friendly Scumbag says, "How do you leave good crumbs to Link Adventures?" I'm gonna tack onto that, basically saying, when I tried to run Tomb, I ran it with brand new people. They were improvisers, so I was like, "Oh, they're gonna be totally fine." But then I realized, oh, their brain is already sort of expanded. They see the wealth of opportunity, and they're kind of nervous about. They're used to like playing together with like making everything up, but the fact that there is some structure, they got nervous. So now I'm just gonna run them through Fandelver. And so how do I or Friendly Scumbag transition between different adventures?
It's a good question, and the crumbs and understanding the hooks, and I think it's worth having, so I always like to keep three, I called it like 3 plus infinite options. And the idea is like, from a DM's perspective, if you kind of don't know where things are headed, then having the idea of like what 3 options are available to the characters, and I'll reinforce those to the players. Say like, at this point, you feel like you have 3 possible options. One is go talk to the bird people. One is go investigate the weird old ruin you saw, and one is go deeper into the jungle following that old map you found.
Yeah.
But you can also do anything else if you have ideas, right? Yeah. And it's that like, if you want structure, here are 3 structured things. If you don't, here's this other avenue where you can do whatever you want. And sometimes they'll be like, oh, well, what about if we went to that volcano door that we saw, So they might come up with something, but if as a DM, we can kind of say like, here's 3 strong ones, so that if they don't know where the hell to go, they have these 3 options. Then they can go there. And if they do have ideas, then they don't have to, they don't have to follow those 3.
Right.
So that helps a lot. I kind of pitch it everywhere. So anybody that follows my stuff probably has already seen all this, but one of the most profound changes in my D&D game in like the last 5 years is this idea that I call secrets and clues, and it's not unique to this, but other people use something similar. And the idea is like, every time I'm getting ready to prepare a game, one of the most important things I do is I just write down 10 things that the characters may discover during the next session. Okay. And they could be old lore, they could be plot seeds, they could be secrets of NPCs that they didn't know. They I try to make them like things that characters would be interested in. Yeah. And I don't tie them to anything, so I don't determine how they find them. I just figure out what they are, and then while the characters are exploring, they might go and touch an arcane pillar and be filled with a vision, and that vision might be one of the secrets and clues. Yeah. And so seeds for other adventures can definitely fall into this secret. I mean, everything falls into these secrets and clues, like monsters they're going to face, and histories and villains and locations and everything else. You can kind of make them all secrets and clues, but one of the big ones are like, what other threads exist? And it could be, an old man has discovered that there's a sinkhole leading down to an old temple that's been buried under the mud. Okay. And you just write that down. You don't have to do anything else. You don't fill them out. You don't come up with maps. You just write that down, and then you're not sure how they discover it, but then they're like, well, they're talking to somebody, and that person says, oh yeah, my grandfather fell down an old pit and found this old thing, and we had to drag him out. There's this bunch of caves down there, but we didn't go down there because it's scary.
Do you ever throw in like, not false leads, but like unimportant leads into those things? Or
I don't, and not because it's a bad idea. Yeah. But it's just not something I have enough time getting the true ones out. Yeah. And given that time is important, I don't really want people to follow a lot of false leads, unless they're interesting, right? Yeah. Like, it's an interesting lead, but like, that's actually something that Tomb does that I avoided, which is that they have guides that will guide you on false paths. Yes. And I was like, my God, like, especially since we're doing a hex crawl, it could be 3 actual months before they discover, like, wow, this guy was lying to him.
Yep. My group picked the liar guy, and thank God I read his phrase wrong, like the part where it's like, he'll take them wherever they want, but he's going to take them to blah,
he's
blah,
really
blah.
Taking a crack hammer,
right? Yeah. So I was like, I read that out loud in his voice, and they're like, wait, what?
They're like, oh, did I say that out loud? Inside voice.
Yeah, and when I was like,
I'll take you wherever you want to go as long as it's rack hammer.
And I was doing like prep for the next session. I was like, I'm an idiot, whatever. But it was like a fun little. It wasn't wrong. And I found out later, but
yeah, it's one of my pieces of advice for running Tomb. And this, I don't know if I've heard this as much from other people, but I definitely think reading through the guides and then selecting the ones you want to put in front of the players is important.
Yeah, I was just looking for tips or whatever, and then someone on Reddit is like, pick the 5 things in Tomb of Annihilation you like, pick them up and move them down. So if like,
I'm about to do that. I've got a place that I've not run, so because I'm running 2 groups, I was hoping that I could have 2 nice different games, and they both pick the exact same path. So I'm like, oh, I'm running the same stuff for both, and it's like there's all these places I'm not running, so I'm actually going to shift a bunch of places from the east to the west, because I really want to see what that's like.
Yeah, that makes total sense. Hard shift again. What do you do when your players are they can't decide what to do. You've given them these secrets and clues. You said before you get a vibe of there's these three things.
Right.
How do you keep them from arguing, especially if you get the vibe that one of your players is not into the... I think if you have three players and they're arguing and they're having fun with it, I love reading like recap posts and like, we argued for so long, it was fun. But if the problem is if there's one person who's like, I hate this, you know. So how do you help?
That's a good question. And there are some cases where decisions like that, you can have a majority. You can sort of have the majority vote, and it's okay. Like two people would, you know. And in my groups, it's like I've had people where like three people are excited about it, and two people are like, oh, I guess it's not really where I want to go, but okay. And then I get to say, I told you so when it turns into a shit show. And but then there are other ones, specifically like moral ones, like are we going to kill this guy or not?
Okay,
or are we going to go save this person or not? Where you almost it might be worth the DM saying, let's break character for a moment.
Yeah,
you guys should come to a unanimous decision on this.
Yeah,
you know, and then try to moderate it. You know, break out a character and then sort of get through what would the character do. I've definitely had like characters where some are morally really strong and then some are pretty morally ambiguous, and it's like, do I kill a person or not? And you kind of want people to sort of like, you know, break away from what your character would do for a minute and get into what will work best for the group.
Mm-hmm.
And then, you know, usually if they're adults, you know, and they're getting along, they'll figure a way through it. I've been lucky that my group is pretty cohesive and you know, no real troublemakers.
Yeah.
And I think that if you get a troublemaker in there who's like either, you know, just the one antagonist who's like, I don't want to do that, then it might be worth stepping aside and like, look, and for the good of the game, you guys should come to an approach. Yeah. And I think another piece of that is making sure that from a DM's perspective, you make it clear that you're not punishing people for the choices they make.
Right.
That if one person said, I really wanted to go, you know, I really wanted not to kill that guy, and the rest of your group is like, no, we don't have anything else to do with him, and if we let him go, he's just going to be trouble later.
Yeah.
We're going to kill him. You don't then say, hey, that guy was right, and you killed this dude, and, you know, now that dude's like, son of a bitch, you know, I knew what the right thing was, but nobody wanted to do what I did, and now look at us.
That's actually
now we're in jail.
That's actually a really good point. That's something that I probably wouldn't have thought of, but it makes total sense of like sort of seeing the landscape of your table and like, you know, normally I was going to have a consequence if they all agreed to kill this guy. Yeah, consequences are fun and they can help your players sort of, I don't know, tighten up their ship or whatever. But I never thought about the idea of like, I actually might be making these people not like each other as humans as much, you know, even though it's a game.
Yeah, it can be tough.
It can be
really tough organized play, and it can be tough. You know, a lot of times sometimes you can't cherry pick your group so perfectly that every personality gets along.
Oh yeah.
And then what do you do when, you know, a couple people, they're just not like they hate each other, but their personalities just don't work real well together.
Yep.
But you still got to navigate this, and that's a real hard part of DMing. You know,
I mean,
that's a tough spot, and a lot of people get into it.
That's why I'm glad Roll20 exists. I mean, I've only played D&D like a small number of times in person, so that's why I'm glad that my Boston group is going to start back up soon. Hopefully this Tuesday. Hopefully. Or cool. Next Tuesday. Or Saturday. I don't know. We were going to do it tonight, but we're going to do it, and then you know how it goes. Mike, I could talk to you for another 9 hours, but I don't want to take any more of your day.
Okay.
And we have other stuff going on tonight on the Geek League Twitch. But I hope sometime in the future I can bug you again.
You bet.
And
yeah, this is great.
Yeah. I feel like we barely scratched the surface of some of my bullet points, which is good. I like when that happens.
Sure.
But go ahead and plug all of your various things, please.
What am I going to plug? So slyflourish.com is where you can read all my articles. Twitter.com/slyflourish is my Twitter feed. I do have a Twitch channel now at the well-named Twitch. Twitch.tv? Twitch.tv/mshay01.
Okay, perfect.
I know, a horrible username, but you know, whatever. Hey, my mom's here, by the way.
Oh, hello.
Yeah, Ivanka Suth is my mom, and she's chatting in Twitch. That's awesome. Hi, Mom.
How are you?
I'll mention my mom.
Is she calling right now?
That's my alarm. She's not calling. So, I have started to do a weekly game prep session where like Sunday mornings, usually about 10 o'clock or 10:30 Eastern Standard Time, I hop onto Twitch. I look over my game notes from my game, and I kind of walk through the Return to the Lazy Dungeon Master checklist while I'm prepping for my Tomb of Annihilation game in the mornings. And that's kind of a nice, fun thing to do. And some people have liked it. I'm brand new to Twitch, so the whole thing is new to me, but it's kind of fun to prep a game while talking to people.
Yeah.
So if people are bored on a Sunday morning, get some coffee, come and sit, and we'll chat about D&D and poke around on my game.
It is M Shea 01, you said?
Yeah, MSHEA 01.
I linked it and hopefully didn't spell it wrong, even though.
Oh, let's see. I'll click it and find out.
Did I do good?
Yeah.
Yes.
It's there.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much, everyone on Twitch and everyone on Patreon who helped make this happen. Yeah, have a good one. Bye.
Bye.
And